Now, Brad Hazzard is a name that you would have got well acquainted with over the last 30 years, but perhaps mostly in the last 2 to 3 during COVID, because he's the New South Wales Health Minister. During his time, he has seen some things, but now he's going to have to get used to life outside of politics because he's going to hang up the boots at this election. Brad Hazzard joins us live now. Thanks so much for your time, Mr. Hazzard. Appreciate it. Some perspective. I heard you say this morning that Dominic Perrottet was in primary school when you entered politics. That gives it some perspective, doesn't it?
It does a bit. It was quite scary, actually, Laura, because when I realised that he was in, I think, about 4th class when I came into politics, I must say, it did start to make me think, maybe it's not exactly the right time to stay for too much longer, but then other personal circumstances happened during the year that made me definitely think it was start to, I was at least thinking about it, and I've made the decision now. It's time to give someone else a go.
And how do you feel now that you have made the decision?
Mixed emotions, I think. I think at the moment I'm still processing it. I didn't expect there to be the level of interest in me going. I thought it would just be, see you later, Brad. But I've actually received lots of messages this morning from lots of people on both sides of politics and in the community. And yeah, I guess it's nice to feel like people think that, yeah.
As I mentioned at the outset, you have seen some things over your 32 years in Parliament. How has it changed? I mean, obviously the media, the news cycle has sped up. Things have got a lot better. I think technology has made life a little bit more efficient. But do you reflect on any kind of regrets or the worst parts of your job?
Let me answer the first part about changes. Yeah, there's been massive changes. It was a lot slower pace when I came into Parliament in 1991. I remember if we wanted to know what had been said in a debate, for example, we had to wait until the following morning for the Hazzard, which is the record of what's said in Parliament. Had to wait for the Hazzard to be slipped under our door in the morning. These days, of course, that doesn't happen. There were no computers. This really makes me sound like an old codger, doesn't it? But anyway, there were no computers on our desks. I remember one of my colleagues who was right next door to me, 6 inches away, saying to me, when we finally got a computer, what is this for? And I think he happily went out never learning what it was for. Fax machines were the way we got our information from our offices. There was no emails. There wasn't an expectation for you to have to respond to a constituent literally seconds after you received an email. Yeah. A lot of change. And then, of course, in the Parliament itself, actually in the chamber, it hasn't changed much. But one of the things that did change, I think, a lot of what goes on in the place was they introduced cameras. They didn't have TV cameras in our chamber. There were none in any Australian Parliament. And suddenly we had these cameras. And I remember thinking, I wonder whether this will change the way people debate, and of course it did. They now play to the cameras, and there's a lot more, show to the whole thing rather than theatre. Still substance. Don't get me wrong. I think people on both sides. People on both sides, and I respect people on both sides. I have a lot of friends on both sides of politics. They are there for the community. I know the community might not think that sometimes, but they are. But they also, because there's such an urgency about getting your message out, I think they play to the cameras a bit. Yep. And look, I wouldn't say that I've ever done that. Yes, I have. I have done that. So it changed the way it works. That's the truth.
Certainly. And you
overall, I think the basic thing, people who come in there still have the same intent to do good things, and I think that's a plus. It's amazing to have. I've travelled in other parts of the world where they pretend they've got democracies and they haven't. We may have a bit of a strange system from time to time where people get a bit tetchy with each other, but it's still democracy and it works pretty well.
Yeah, that's true. You've got to take a glass half full with these things. You talked about how brutal it was during COVID, really for all of us, but you were health minister, you were fronting the cameras each and every single day. I mean, hindsight is a wonderful thing, but is there anything now that you sit here and say, oh, I wish I didn't have to do that? I mean, I'm thinking about when you and the police were encouraging people to dob in their neighbours if they were breaking COVID rules, and, you know, some of the restrictions. I mean, one of the quotes that I always rings in my head from you is, dancing and singing is the most dangerous thing you can do right now.
Can I just say, Laura, I hope I didn't say dob in your neighbours. I heard those discussions.
Yeah.
I don't think I ever said that, and I was very careful. I mean, one of the things that worried me most, I guess, there are a lot of things that worried me, a lot of things, and the orders that I had to do in order to put it back in context. Late March, when things had really... the first 4 cases we had were in New South Wales, with the 25th of January 2020. By late March, it was like the world was on fire. It was horrible. And I remember being told by our modellers up in the health headquarters that I would be the minister that presided over 25,000 deaths that year from COVID. And that really did burn right into me. I thought... Really? There must be something we can do. So I guess I did a lot with Kerry Chant and Gladys Berejiklian, and we took steps that none of us wished we had to take. In fact, we wish we didn't have to take. But I don't recollect ever saying... I never said what you said, but I think there were times when, for example, there were expressions that were used, like, and I didn't use them again, but I felt very edgy when I heard the words boots on the ground. Because what we were really trying to do is to have, when police came in, police were supposed to be just helping us and get the messages out. They were taking food parcels to many people, but those messages that were subtext, that I really felt very uncomfortable about those messages. On the other hand, I also knew that you can't always manage every part of a show, and it was a massive show. It was a massive effort to try and bring everything together to keep people safe. So I guess that would be one of the few things. And other than that, I guess just going through it, yeah, it was bad for me and for the health people, but gee, it was bad for the community. And I had friends who turned against people who became, you know, rabid anti-vaxxers, and then because they had different views, friendships fell apart, long-established relationships fell apart. I think that's one of the saddest things that came out of it. But I'm pleased that we got to where we got to. I'm pleased that in that first year, anyway, one death would have been terrible, but we had 57 and not 25,000.
Yeah,
57's horrible, but not the 25,000. So I'm pleased about that. But yeah, it's been an interesting time, and not a time I would wish on anybody, even the people I have the least regard for, I wouldn't wish it on them.
We won't ask you to name them, but I know you had great regard for your brother, and you don't ever spend enough time with your family. So I suppose at this juncture, you want to remember him today. Sounds like he was a great brother. I don't want to make you cry.
Yeah, that was earlier in the year. That was earlier in the year, and that was a bad time. Still a bad time. I'd rather not talk about that if that's all right. Yep.
We'll leave it there.
Made me think about things, though. It did make me think about... It made me think about what's life. And 32 years, I've done the best. And I'd like to have a time where I'm not involved 24 hours a day, you know, not on the phone, not available 7 days a week, 365 days of the year. And I just would like to have... I'd like to have a life. I'd like to have some time with my wife, my kids, my dogs, my friends, and I'd like to have... I still want to work. If there's anybody out there can think of something I can do, be welcome to think about it, but not one that involves 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. And I hope I've done the best. I think I have done the best I could have done, and I know some people won't think that I did, but I've tried.
Fair enough, Mr. Hazzard. We thank you for your time, and I'm sorry to invoke those tears this morning, but you wear your heart on your sleeve, and we thank you for that. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Laura. Thank you. Thank you.